Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group, and tonight we're on our political channel, and we have another candidate running for city council, in particular, 5th District at large, Mr. Chuck Byrd. He's a businessman, long-time businessman here in the Kansas City metropolitan area. Welcome to the show, Chuck.
Thank you, Carlos. Glad to be with you.
Let's cut right through the chase. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself. It's like all my interviews, let's go back to kindergarten and tell our audience who you are, where you grew up, some of your mentors, and what your philosophy is on life. And then we're going to go into the city council stuff.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Carlos. Once again, Chuck Byrd, lifelong resident of Kansas City. Been here all my life, educated in the Kansas City, Missouri School District. And so been in business here in Kansas City for 40 plus, right at 45 years now. 5th generation family here. Been in the solid waste and recycling industry for the last 25 years. Prior to that, I was in the collision repair business here in Kansas City. And so been involved with several civic organizations over my tenure. Black Chamber of Commerce of Greater Kansas City, Northland Chamber of Commerce, Fairness in City Contracting, American Diabetes, O&M Home for Boys, and the list goes on and on. So I've been a servant of the community for several years, not to mention our in-house reentry program that we use at our company for people that have been incarcerated and have a hard time finding employment. We employ these individuals and give them employment, and our objective is to get them acclimated back into being productive citizens in the community. And so I have a genuine passion for, number one, for serving people. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a family man. Family's real important to me. Spending quality time with them. I'm a man of faith, and I split no hairs about that. And so that's just a little bit about me. But as we get into the interview, I'll be able to give you some information where you can go to a website and find a lot more about me.
All right. Tell me this. Why do you want to run?
Well, I believe that it's more not just a running. I believe it's like a special calling for me, an assignment. You know, like I stated, I've been in business here in Kansas City for over 45 years, and the city has been good to me. I love Kansas City, and I believe I'm at a place in my life where you learn, you earn, and you return. So it's time for me to give back. I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman. And after watching how, no disrespect to our city council that's there, but I believe we need to bring some smart business sense to city council. And being that voice, those eyes and those ears for our community is really important to me, because I see how a lot of the business that we do is not always in our best interest. And so there's a lot of different ways I could elaborate on that, but not to throw anybody under the bus. I just feel that I have some tools that I've learned over the years that can move the needle in the right direction when it comes down to how we conduct business at City Hall.
Well, I'm ready to throw all of them under the bus. So, because I'm a businessman also, and I think off camera, when I asked you to do this interview, we had some conversation. I said, I see all this money going to consultants year after year, and some of them have never even had a business, built a business, and they're selling, I can show you how to do a business. And I think that you're right on point as it relates to we need some business people taking care of our business.
Well, I would agree. Like I said, no disrespect to any of the council people, and you can't hold them accountable for something that they're not knowledgeable about. And so the late Doc Holliday said, trust but verify. And so I think one of the criteria that we should have for city council people is some business background. And I mean true business. In order for you to really understand what we as small business people go through, you have to been able to walk in our shoes for you to really understand. And I think that's one of the key pieces that's missing when you sit down and you start having a conversation with a small business person. Any seasoned good business person will know whether or not you understand what they're saying. And it don't take long. And so I think that's one of the things I want to bring to City Hall, not just that I have all the answers, but being able to negotiate good deals on behalf of this city. These contractors and development is tough, but it's necessary for us to move forward as a city. But when we go to the table, we cannot allow these contractors to come into our city and start dictating to us what they want to do. And so,
well, I'm the cutoff king, and we talked a little bit about this. Uh, I still have uh, no other way bad feelings about uh, the stadium renovations. That should have produced a couple of black millionaires, and it didn't. And now they're talking about a new stadium downtown. From a business standpoint, they did some deals with Cerner and some other large companies, and next thing you know, those companies don't even exist, so they sold everything off. But they sold the city a faulty pipe dream on what was going to happen, and they're using taxpayers' dollars. And the average Kansas City, and especially in our community, they're not really paying attention to that. That's what they leave our public officials to do. And I think, as I said, I have no qualms about throwing all of them under the bus, under a damn tank, because it's a bunch of trickery, as Malcolm say, chicanery, and they bamboozling our community with pictures and descriptions of what they're doing, but what they're doing would manifest itself in each and every citizen's pocketbook in our community and in our neighborhoods if they were doing the right thing. And I think it's time to look at things from a different perspective.
Carlos, I would agree with you. And there again, it leads back to if they're not knowledgeable of how business works and long-term deals. I've done multi-million-dollar projects myself, and it was with my money. And so I treat my money and your money the same when it comes to business. I'm going to look out for the best interest. And I think we do deals short term and long term, but we have to put things in place that's not going to hurt us. A fine example is the Cerner project, where we gave them, I'm not sure all the details, but I know we gave them a tax break for a certain amount of time, and due to COVID or whatever, it didn't work out for them, and so they wanted to pull out. But it had a financial impact on the schools, the Hickman Mill School District. And so I believe we have to negotiate good deals that holds these individuals accountable, short term as well as long term, because typically when you do a 10-year deal, most of your current city council people won't be here when that term's out. And so then they, one of those deals, but that's not good business, because the way I would do it, if we are giving you tax incentives and for whatever reason you decide to do something different in that term, please understand you are still responsible, good or bad, for any inconvenience, any financial burden you put on any entity, church, school, business. You're still responsible for those dollars. And so I think the city can put some things in place where we can levy that debt to whoever that entity is.
What do you know about the businesses on Truman Road and the bike lanes and the different things that have taken place from a business standpoint?
Well, it's funny you should ask me about that because I know I have customers that I provide service to, and I frequently visit some of the businesses on Truman Road on a regular. One in particular is Portia's, small restaurant there off Truman Road in Cleveland. She's been there for 36 years. Very limited parking off street. And so the majority of her people would park there on the street. And so all of a sudden, these bike lanes start to show up. No meetings were taking place at all with them, not just her, but any of the other residents, all the way from Van Brunt, all the way down to I know of Truce. And so one day they look up and then they have these ballards being put in the street. Still no one talks to them. City council person finally comes in and visits with them because it is election season. So therefore, here's an opportunity. And so I don't think the process was thought out. Number one, you first visit with the residents or the businesses if there's going to be a change that's going to possibly affect their business. This is what I call good business at City Hall. And when that doesn't happen, people tend to feel like you are starting to take their rights away and you're going to start getting pushback. These bike lanes were put in with no consideration to the businesses along Truman Road. So what did they do? They started rallying together, protesting and saying, hey, we need to be heard. We need to be heard. But they need to be heard on the front end, not in the middle of a project.
That's what I find really disturbing. I've read so many different consultant findings on Parks and Rec, on the different things over the last decade. And every last finding, they could have got, they spent $50,000, $100,000 on these stuff. They could have got that information from a homeless person. It's like we keep managing from the top down instead of asking the community what they want and then trying to work towards that effort. With that being said, the 5th District at large, what is your plan and what is your platform in general?
Well, it's not just, 5th District is where I'm based at, but at large, I am citywide. And so there's a lot of blight that we need to deal with in the 5th District, not just the 5th District, but there's other areas of the city that we have to deal with blight. And so we need to take a close look at that and what that looks like, because just like we have the same situation in the urban core where the truths being that dividing line from the haves and the have-nots, have the same issue in the South. And so getting my hands around that piece there, looking at those areas that are blighted and see how we can bring, number one, some redevelopment. And what I mean redevelopment, I want to do redevelopment that's going to create jobs for people. Don't just develop it where, yeah, it's a nice place and it's somewhere where you can spend your money, but I want to be able to create jobs for people. I'll take, for instance, right there on 87th and Blue Ridge, the old Burlington Coat Factory. I've had conversations with individuals that would take and turn that into one of our solar panel distributors, creating jobs. That's what I'm talking about. It's on the bus line so people can get to it. And so things like that is what really drives me. When you start talking about economic development, that's what I'm talking about.
All right, talk to me about because you are at large the Northland.
Northland, we have one city, two separate issues. Northland's issues are not the same as South. Okay, I've had the pleasure over the last 20 years to service the Northland with my company. And so I know about Twin Creeks. I know about the development. I know about the 587 plan that's part of the 152 corridor. And so I will say this, the Northland feels like the city of Kansas City treats them as a redheaded stepchild. And so I get it, but I hear it because I've serviced that area. And so we have to deal with that imaginary boundary line that we have, that we created, the North and the South. And so being able to reach across the aisle, I believe we need to put our resources where it's going to have the most impact for our citizens, be it North or South. I don't want it to be a thing where the South always gets this or the North always gets this. And so you got to bring some business sense to City Hall and look at what's in the best interest for the people. Not what I think, not what my colleague thinks, what's in the best interest for the people who are the ones who put us where we're at.
All right, let's speed this up a little bit. The airport. What's your evaluation real quick? Because then I want to go to Northeast, because Northeast, my godfather called the capital. That's where he grew up. And they seem to be picking up steam as it relates to community activity and so forth. Airport, and then let's go Northeast.
Airport. We have a fantastic brand new airport. I think it's a great edifice. We finally have graduated to be what we consider now a real city because we got a real nice airport. I think there were some missteps along the way. One of the things that really stands out to me on the airport was the opportunity was missed for Black businesses to grow their businesses. We all know that MBE participation was always an issue. And at the end of the project, it was still an issue because it didn't happen. Yes, there were some minorities that took place. I mean, that had an opportunity to grow their business, but I don't know what the numbers were because everybody plays with the numbers. But the city council had an opportunity to enforce to make sure that that happened because they were the ones who basically was monitoring what was going on. Do I think we did a good job of making sure that minorities had an opportunity to grow their business? Absolutely not. I was one of them.
And I was one too. I was like, how you got the #1 digital Black owned digital media company in the country and you haven't even talked to them? I'm like, it's not adding up to me.
Well, you know, we got to get past these large companies or contractors coming in here, getting these contracts from us, and then bringing outside companies to perform the services that our local businesses can do the same work. And so when we do that, then that tax dollar leaves here never more to return. And so, you know, those are things that I know that probably didn't set well with a lot of people. But there again, that starts with the city council.
Well, what do you? Let's go to the Northeast. As I said, seem like you in touch with businesses and the community. I didn't know that the Northeast area was growing so much, and they're really paying attention to what's going on right now.
Well, you know, let me start off by saying kudos to Northeast Neighborhood Association, the Yellow Jackets that work the Independence Avenue area. You know, looking at what that was like 10 years ago and what they do and what they bring to the table of keeping the avenue a lot cleaner than it used to be, and still, you know, prostitution was a big thing. But the Northeast is on the swing. We have a very diverse group of individuals occupying that space now, and so from a demographic standpoint, it's really changing. My business is located in the Northeast, and so I'm there just about every day.
Didn't know that.
Yes, sir. I'm right off of Chestnut Traffic Way and Front Street, and been there for probably about 18 years now. And so, yeah, I'm in and out of there every day. And so, yes, I do see the Northeast really changing the way that the Northeast has been perceived over the years.
All right. I want to get ready to wrap up. Let's talk about downtown.
Okay.
What's your opinion on the money that's been spent and is being spent downtown?
Well, I think that a lot of what we're seeing downtown right now is someone's personal dream, and I say that for several different reasons. We have the Power and Light District, we have the City Market, we have the Crossroads, and what we have now is a streetcar being extended to UMKC. And the objective, I believe, is to get those young people a way to get down to Power and Light to help that. Power and Light has been a dependent for the city since the conception. And so trying to make that work, we just haven't figured it out. But now there's conversations about bringing the Royal Stadium downtown. And so I have my opinion about that as well. So,
well, I won't get you in no trouble either way with the opinion on that stadium. I'm
right.
like, they need to do something in the black community. I don't care nothing about no damn stadium.
Right.
And by me having general contracting experience, and I'd like to talk about so much more, but that downtown, what black businesses are generating any money from what's going on down there? And I think because of how planning goes on in Kansas City, they're closed-minded. They said that the Sprint wouldn't work, but new ideas came, and Sprint became one of the most successful arenas in the country.
I would agree. It was a much needed venue to attract different acts and different activities that to come to the city. We have the Sprint Arena, but we don't have an NBA basketball team. You look at Oklahoma City, you look at Memphis, Tennessee, they have professional basketball teams. I don't understand why Kansas City doesn't have a professional NBA basketball team.
I can tell you why, because you and me been offline talking about your history here. And
Right.
when I moved here in 78 and when I had my construction company, I had 2 season tickets, prime tickets for the Kings. But the word back then, even, they wasn't going to watch all these black people run up and down the court and blah, blah, blah. Because the NBA really even wasn't as developed financially back then as it is now. And they just gave our team away.
Well, yeah, and we never revisited that situation. I know that most cities that I go to, you have football in the winter, you have baseball during the summer, and you have basketball during, the spring. And so for us to have an arena like that and not have an NBA team, that makes me scratch my head, and I'm not sure why we don't. But that's something that I would definitely look into.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on. And what I would like you to do, close out with anything that you would have to say to your constituents and your supporters.
Sure. First of all, Carlos, thank you for having me. This campaign is going to shape what Kansas City does for the next 10 to 12 years with this particular council. We'll have 7 seats that will be replenished out of the 12. This is a very critical time for Kansas City, and I think we need to be smart in making sure we put the right people in place. I'm running as a write-in candidate. The only way for me to get to the general election is that people hear something that I said or know my character to write me in on April the 4th. That's the only way for me to advance to the general election. So there's a lot of other things that we could have talked about that's near and dear to my heart. Illegal dumping, blight, potholes, trash, all those things. I've had the pleasure of making sure that I stay in tune to what's going on both north and south. But what I will say is Kansas City, I believe I can bring good business sense to City Hall and make it make sense, not just for me, but for the citizens that I serve. And so on April the 4th, when you go to the polls, write me in as your candidate.
You so clever, baby boy. You are so clever. I like that. Well, as we always say in closing, got something else to go?
I got one other thing. I didn't tell you where to go to my website. I do apologize. My website is Byrd, that's BYRDFORKC.com. ByrdforKC.com. Like I said, this is my ink pen. It has all my information on it, QR code. And so, Kansas City, I'm your guide to move the needle in the right direction.
All right. And as I said before, when we close, we like to remind our community, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
The program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.